Don Welch. This is MTI Instruments. We're going to talk about connecting a digital panel meter, digital/analog panel meter, to one of our laser sensors, which is a MicroTrak 3, which I have here. This has analog output, 0 to 10 volts. And what we're going to do is take one of these off-the-shelf Lascar PanelPilot meters, which sell for about $100. And you can buy these things in a variety of places or directly from Lascar. And what we're going to do today is show how easy it is to program this. MTI also has a website, application note. You can go to the MTI website, look for applications and downloads and application notes, and go to the index and then look for adding an analog panel meter, analog digital panel meter to MTI's analog products. And that shows the wiring in there and gives you World Wide Web links to be able to get to the Lascar panel meter site, where you will download the software to be able to program the panel meter. You'll also see the wiring, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And the other thing that you will need to accomplish this task is from the MTI brochure for the MicroTrak 3 laser. What you want to do is you want to look up your laser that you've got. In this case, we're using a LTS 50-20, which has a 50 millimeter standoff and 20 millimeter measuring range. And that corresponds to the 0 to 10 volts output. But what's going to be important here is you're going to need to look at either the extended far range and extended close range, or just the sensitivity factor and the range. There's two ways that you'll be able to program this meter that we'll talk about in a second. And then you're going to need to know this information for programming the meter to set the endpoints on it. You have a choice with this panel meter, which I'm going to be setting up for a single channel display, of whether you want to program it for absolute distance or relative distance. If you want to program it for absolute distance, the lower limit would be the range, which we call extended close range. So you would actually put in that distance off the brochure page. And then the maximum extended far range reading would be on your maximum meter reading. So when we go through the software setup, you'll see those. Today, what I'm going to do, though, is just I'm going to put in the measuring range for this. And if we look at the absolute measuring range of this, the extended range is 25 millimeters. So we're going to program the meter from 0 to 25 millimeters. So I'm not interested today in programming the absolute distance, but rather just the relative distance. So we'll be working from 0 to 25 millimeters in this case. You can program it for either one. Next, we're going to program the panel meter. I'm assuming that you've already gone to the Lascar PanelPilot and that you've put in the type of panel meter that you're using. In this case, the one that we recommend and the one that's in our application note is the SGD 24-M. So you're going to have to download the software for programming that particular meter. They do have several others on there, so you want to make sure you choose the correct one, and that's right on the back of our PanelPilot here. Now, the USB cable that you would use to talk to the meter also powers it up, so it provides 5 volts so that the meter's running so that we can talk to it. We've already downloaded the software from Lascar and made sure that's all working. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to choose Setup and Configure Your Display. So we click on that, and this screen comes up that shows us all the different screens that we can choose. But before we choose the screen, you want to go through and you want to tell the program which exact panel meter you have. So we're going to select the SGD 24M. Done that. And then it gives us a number of other choices regarding the configuration. This is actually a 2-channel panel meter, but today we're just going to be using it for a single channel for the MicroTrak 3, which is a single analog output. And that analog output is going to be input to the meter and will be scaled appropriately by our configuration here. So the next step is we're going to choose voltage. You would always do that. We want to have an analog and digital. You can choose either or both. It's kind of fun to have both on there. We're going to also choose single channel. And the next thing we've done after we've set those inputs, we also can choose alarms. I'm not going to pick alarms right now. Then I'm going to choose a panel meter configuration. And this is your personal preference, what you want your panel meter to look like. There's a variety of different canned displays in here where Lascar has programmed in the graphics, so you don't have to deal with graphics at all. But you do have to choose one of these display functions, and I'm choosing the first one right here. You'll see the big green check mark there. And then I'm going to hit next. It asks us if we want to change any of the colors on there. In this case, I'm fine with what we have, so I'm just going to go on to the next screen, choose next. The next screen is going to ask us for the customized text, and we talked that we're going to make this a relative panel meter, so it's going to be in millimeters because our output is 0 to 25 millimeters. So for the bottom of the display, I'm going to choose 0 for 0 millimeters. I'm going to choose 12.5 for the middle because that's halfway to 25 millimeters. For the max reading, I'm going to choose 25. And then for label 1, I'm going to choose millimeters, mm for millimeters. And I choose next. So that sets our display range. Now the next thing we have to do is tell it, we have to scale the voltage input to the range here. And this is pretty simple. So when we have 0 volts in, the needle position is going to be at 0, and that's going to be 0 millimeters. So I don't even have to do anything here. It's already saying 0 millimeters. At 10 volts, the display is going to be up at 25 millimeters. And we get that, again, we get that off our brochure here. And we see that the extended range is 25 millimeters, which is the second line down here for our LTS 50-20. So 25 millimeters would be the top end of the scale there. Once we've done that, we hit next. After we put in our 0 for the bottom of the meter, 12.5 for the middle of the meter range, and then 25.00 for the upper end. Make sure you have the decimals the same as the panel meter. And then we move to the screen that asks us if we want to add a splash screen. Now, a splash screen is when the meter first fires up, you can put something like your company logo in there. In this case, we're going to put in MTI's company logo. If you're building the laser and the meter into a product, you can put your company logo in there also, and it's just will be a PNG or a JPEG image. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to browse to the MTI logo. I open that up, and we can see the logo in there, and then I hit next. We've selected a 3-second splash screen there. And now we're up to the final screen here. And an important thing here is you want to save the configuration. If you don't save the configuration, you will have a configuration error when you try to upload it to the panel meter. So be sure you save the configuration, put it in a file so you can recall it in the future. So we're going to hit save. So I'm going to call this MTI1, and then it automatically assigns config for it. And I hit save. So it saves that says that the configuration was automatically saved, which is good. The next step is going to be to upload the configuration to the meter. So whatever's on here is going to go away. This takes a few minutes to do this after I hit save. And then we'll come back and talk about how we're going to wire the whole thing up, and you can see the new configuration put in there. Well, we've connected up the wires between the panel meter and the MicroTrak 3. So we have 3 connections that we have to make. We have the plus and minus power supply leads. I should mention the PanelPilot works off 24 volts. It has an input range of 4 volts up to 30 volts. And we run our MicroTrak 3 off 24 volts, so that's fine for also powering up the panel meter. So I just piggybacked on our power supply connector here, and then I connected our blue wire output, which is the analog output from the MicroTrak 3, up to the channel 1 input on the panel meter. So the next thing we're going to do is plug it in, and you'll see the splash screen come up, and which is the MTI logo. And then we'll see our display, which is what we programmed. And I've got a little target here so I can put that in front of the laser and adjust the range so that we can make sure everything's working. So, okay, we're fired up. The splash screen comes up, displays for about 3 seconds, and we can see that we've got our analog panel meter here. I'm going to adjust this display a little, or distance, sorry, the target. So we can see the analog needles is mid-range right now. So this arc up here is the analog panel meter that we programmed in, and we see the 0 at the low end, 25 millimeters at the high end, 12.5 in the middle, which is exactly what we programmed. And down here we have a big digital indication in millimeters. So as I move this target here, we can see that the meter is moving between 0 and 25, which is exactly what we intended. So we're all set programming it, and again, the wiring information is on our website. You go to navigate to MTIinstruments.com and look for the application notes by index and applying an analog digital panel meter to our analog instruments. Now this also has a digital output, but if you don't want to use a PC, this is a nice little $100 setup that you can use out on a factory floor to make some kind of setup, or to include even in a product. And as I mentioned, these are about $100, so they're relatively cost efficient and very easy to wire and program, as you saw. If you have any questions, you can always contact us on our technical line, and we'd be glad to help you out. Ordinarily what we do is we recommend customers buy this themselves and program it, save yourself a whole bunch of money and get a nice display out of it. If MTI did it, we can do that if you want. If you have an OEM application and you want us to program the meter and supply these things, we can do that. But we really, for onesie twosies, we recommend that you do this yourself and save yourself a bundle of money. Thank you.